Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind Enemy Lines. That's right. We're up here going through the season. We got the Patriots coming up this week, so it's time to have one of our fellow Patriot insiders in the house. I got my man Colby Cochran from Patriots Global here, kind enough to dedicate his time here. And folks, these people are running their schedule around left and right. I can attest to this. So very big thanks and props to Colby. Man, how you doing today? Good to have you in the house.
I'm doing great, man. First and foremost, like I said, thank you for having me on. Anytime I can chat it up, talk about football, Patriots football at that, I love doing so. And I'm on a high this week for sure, dude. I mean, everybody counted out the Patriots, everybody and their mothers, and I said I called the upset. And I had fans, especially like Jets fans and Dolphins fans, telling me, "Oh, you're stupid, you're delusional, get off the platform." And exactly what I thought was going to happen is exactly what happened. And I haven't seen vibes within this organization this good in so long. So me, other Patriots fans, even the Patriots players, like you're going to bed with a smile on your face. You're waking up with a smile on your face, and it definitely feels good.
Well, and it seems like in a lot of ways there is some mirroring between our different organizations here, isn't there, Colby? And before, we get into kind of the matchup of this, but I think that energy you talk about is a bit of the similar kind of kinetic energy we were feeling a little bit ourselves this past week. But it is the legendary old coach that's been there for well over a decade, who's attained the greatest of success, that it's no easy point to get to the point of moving off of. We both, I think, encountered this where both organizations really wanted things to work with that coach as long as they possibly kind of could take it. And then you get to something new and you can kind of feel the restart. You can feel everything kind of reset a little bit. And is that what you guys are getting to from this a little bit, that there was maybe a bit of stagnation and things had gotten a little bit blocked up? And now it's almost like the pipes are sort of flowing a little bit again. Not that Mayo or McDonald's the miracle worker, but just things had gotten, I don't know, the word stale, or maybe you got a good word for it. And it's not even to put blame on the prior legendary old coach. It's just sometimes things, it's that old, after 10 years, after 20 years, stuff just gets kind of held up a little bit.
Yeah, the world changes, people change, philosophies change, and you have to adapt with the times. Belichick was great for the early stages of like football. I mean, I'm talking 2000s, 2010s. With what that generation of football was, Belichick was a perfect head coach. His dad was a part of the military, so he had kind of that military background. That's how he coached. He wasn't a very loving coach. He was hard hitting. He was a tough love type of coach, and players adapted to that. At the time, players adapted to that, and it was an atmosphere that some players really liked. But I feel like in today's generation, for lack of better words, like today's generation is a little bit more soft. And I think we're seeing that with football coming out of the collegiate level. If you look at some of the best head coaches today, they're not necessarily the best in terms of X's and O's, but it's how they're able to keep their team in terms of a mental standpoint. Like Dan Campbell with the Detroit Lions, to me, I don't think that he's necessarily an amazing head coach who schemes things up, amazingly in terms of X's and O's. I just think that he's able to keep his team together. He's able to keep his team motivated, having guys play for their teammates to their left and towards their right. And that's what's making their team as good as they are. And I think that's the same thing with Jerod Mayo. He said it himself. He's not necessarily going to do things Bill Belichick did. He doesn't believe necessarily in football being 100% X's and O's, but just kind of having that mentality part to it. And I think that's what it is. Like I said, coming out of the collegiate level, I think players want to play for a player's coach. They want to feel loved. They want to feel like they matter. And I just think under Bill Belichick, that's just not what it's been. Belichick really thought of football and these players as chess pieces. He thought about them as a part of the game, as a part of the business, as where Jerod Mayo thinks of these players as the biggest tipping point to their team. I mean, even after the win against the Cincinnati Bengals, afterwards, in the locker room, he's telling the players, we could not be here without you. We are here because of you. He's spreading the love. You can see the emotions. And I just think that in today's NFL, like I said, that's the type of coaches that players are adapting to.
So from your perspective, because the outside looking in, the narrative on this was a little bit of Belichick is the GM, not good. The relation to the players and the sort of hard line approach on things at times, not as good to this generation of player, but still had the X's and O's side of it. Is that an accurate portrayal?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why Belichick also wasn't coaching in the league, is because owners understand that his style of coaching isn't what players are responding very well to. Not just that, but Belichick definitely has an ego to him, and part of me has wondered, would Belichick still be here if he gave up his general manager duties? Belichick, from scheming things up from a week-to-week basis, second to none out of any single coach still active in the NFL. But the Patriots got as bad as they have over the last couple years because of the lack of talent on their roster, more specifically, the lack of talent on the offensive side of the football. And this is an offensive-minded league. You look at some of the best teams, the Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers. I mean, these teams who are consistent and they're going to the Super Bowl and they're winning playoff games, they have good offenses. And Belichick believed that he could win games with, at best, an average offense. And I think that's why we had to move on. Kraft finally had to move on because he realized that Belichick was never going to give up those general manager duties, and the roster needed to get better at some point. You can only coach as good as your players are going to provide for you. And it's the fact that Belichick's won as many games as he had with such a lackluster roster is impressive. But at some point, you got to start adding some more talented players to your roster if you want to go to another Super Bowl.
Yeah, especially when it keeps getting more maybe extreme in that general manager failing side of it. Like it sort of just keeps dipping and dipping in that one direction of it. And as you speak, man, there's, as I say, many echoes and mirroring to a little bit of what happened with Carroll. Carroll's a different guy. These guys are both, it's kind of weird. They're both on the surface of it, completely different coaches with a completely different approach in how they do it. But at the same point, they sort of kind of both ended up getting to the same place on the trail at about the same time for almost kind of similar bits of reasons, being just adapting, evolving. You've got something good you do, but these other things that are that used to be small little parts of the bad part of your game need to pop up. It sounds like you then were supportive of moving on. Was the choice then to pivot to a Mayo, or were you more starry-eyed for something that would be a bigger, better, badder candidate in your eyes, maybe more of a name candidate?
Say that one more time for me.
Did you want to go with Jerod Mayo as the head coach transitioning then from, because it sounds like you were in favor of one to then move on from Belichick from your standpoint. Was Mayo the guy for you that you were locked in on, or was there other candidates that were more what you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense why they wanted Jerod Mayo. I mean, he's been the favorite. Apparently, it was actually in his contract. So a year ago, just over a year ago now. So Jerod Mayo actually had opportunities to go in and seek out a potential head coaching job, or at least the defensive coordinator job. And the Patriots said, no, we don't want you to go. We believe you are in our future. So randomly, the media starts reporting that Jerod Mayo was turning down head coaching interviews with like the Carolina Panthers and all these other teams. And he's staying and signing an extension with the Patriots. And we're all here like, why in God's name would he do that? Later to find out that the reason he stayed was because it was put in his contract by the Patriots owner, Robert Kraft, that whenever they moved on from Bill Belichick, he was going to take over as the successor and be the Patriots head coach. So it was very clear that this was a guy that when the Patriots brought in 2019 as their linebackers coach, obviously a former player here for New England, played his entire career here, Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro. Like, this guy was one of the best linebackers in the league, especially in franchise history for the Patriots alone, let alone the league in general. It was very clear that the Patriots and Patriots owner Robert Kraft believed that he was going to be the successor, because he was somebody who was going to be able to marry this modern day NFL while also kind of combining what the Patriots needed from a head coach, somebody who could adapt and relate to these players a little bit more, but still provide the Patriots way, what the Patriots have been known to do, and still be able to teach some of those Bill Belichick techniques from a defensive standpoint. So, some Patriots fans, they wanted like a Bobby Slowick or a Ben Johnson, an offensive-minded coach, which you can understand, right? You can understand why you would want that, because a lot of the greatest coaches, a lot of the greatest head coaches and some of the best teams have those head coaches who are offensive-minded coaches in the league. But, for me, having a guy who's been here, he knows the team, he knows the philosophy, and can continue to coach up that defense and keep them top 10 like Belichick was able to do for so long, I think it was important. I think that this is definitely the signing that they should have made, and I'm glad they went with it.
Makes sense. You sort of be able to keep a hold of that thing we were just talking about with Belichick that he still possessed, being the good ability to structure game plan and really be able to prepare for opponent, because he was so good about, didn't matter the opponent, he would prepare for that individual one, scores goes counter to us, we would always just sort of play what we're going to play. It didn't matter to the opponent. And it was something that he was very smart in and how he went. What has been, so I guess defensively, when I was doing a little bit of research on this, it seems like on the surface of it, Mayo's not doing a lot of changes. Going to be multiple, a little bit on defensively as Belichick had been in the past, but then maybe he's going to try to be a little bit more blitz heavy in his approach than maybe Belichick was there at the end. Is that accurate way of looking at what you're kind of getting with this defense and what he's looking to do from a change, at least on that side of the ball?
Yeah, so this offseason, the Patriots actually promoted defensive line coach DeMarcus Covington to being their official defensive coordinator. Patriots haven't had a defensive coordinator since Matt Patricia in like 2017, 2018. So it's been a long time since they've had that, but they believe in having coordinators. They believe in those positions and having those titles. And when he was hired, he accidentally let it slip through the cracks. And you could tell that when he said it, he was like, shoot, maybe I shouldn't have said that to the media. But he said that the Patriots were going to get back to playing a style of defense that was a lot more aggressive. And to me, when he said that, I immediately thought of 2019, 2018 version of the Patriots, to where they were very aggressive and they were a lot more blitz heavy. Like you mentioned, since 2020, 2021, the Patriots have had one of the lowest blitz rates defensively because they're asking their defense to get home with the four guys on their defensive line, right? They're basically saying our linebackers, they're going to drop back into coverage. We're going to ask our secondary to cover our guys and lock them down. And that's going to let, Matthew Judon and Dietrich Wise and Josh Uche essentially get to the quarterback. They had such a stout defense, our defensive line, and really good pass rushers to where they didn't really need to blitz the ball. They didn't have to come up with extravagant blitz packages in order to apply pressure. And I think that's why they were okay with letting Matthew Judon go. They were okay with trading him because they said, as good as you are, we're going to be so aggressive to where it's not going to be worth paying a 32-year-old, $25 million. And like I mentioned, getting back to a 2019, 2018 version where the linebackers are a much, much bigger piece to getting to the quarterback. As of late, we see these guys dropping back into coverage and having to cover running backs and tight ends out of the backfield. Now I think they're going to be shooting the gaps. They're going to be setting the edge a lot more. Your Jamie Collins, your Kyle Van Noy's back in the day where, your defensive linemen, they weren't really getting double-digit sacks, but it's because you had these linebackers coming in getting 7-8 sacks apiece, and that's exactly what I think they're going to do. They're going to come up with unique ways to show opposing offensive different looks that are going to confuse them. Have safeties blitzing, have cornerbacks blitzing. Sometimes you're going to have multiple cornerbacks blitzing at once, and that's how they're going to get pressure.
And it is a little bit, too. That was also, I felt like how more Belichick was running it through the early part of the dynasty, right? Like that was his approach, was a little bit more in the manufacturing point, too. And as you said, they had the talent there to get it done with the front four. You can understand that. But odd to still make that transition as he did in that way, even for a couple-year period there from Belichick's standpoint, because he did have so much success early in his time there with New England with those blitzing linebackers, Teddy Bruschi and Vrabel, and getting those guys moving. So interesting that he kind of went that way. But look, if you got the dogs up front to get it done, I guess you don't have to. But it also leads to sometimes the simplified stuff on the back end of the coverages because guys are just sort of dropping. And even though you end up with 7 guys dropping in depth, we ran into this ourselves. There still ends up becoming holes in the zone, flood zone concepts, and different. It ends up still with somehow or another. There's some guys sitting, and you're like, how's it happen? How's there? We got all those guys back there. We're going the front four, but I think you do have to mix it up, to your point on the blitzing in this modern age. You can't just afford to be this team that's going to say we're going to run with the front four and one of them get home, one of them get home. It seems like offenses can kind of structure around that a little bit in how they attack.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially with, I'm someone who believes that there's not enough good offensive linemen in the league. There's a lot of teams, especially from a tackle position, that want to upgrade there. But I also do think that there are a lot of teams, especially that the Patriots play this upcoming season, 2024 alone, that do have really good O-lines to where, even if you have Matthew Judon, that's a pretty good defensive line. But is it enough to get past some of these really good O-lines in the league? Probably not. So again, why pay Matthew Judon that type of money when you're going to be asking your linebackers to play a much bigger role? I mean, even your depth linebackers, having them set the edge on third down and shooting the gaps on third down, something we started to see them do last year, something that's going to be dialed up significantly more this year. I mean, even in that game against the Bengals, on third down, constantly just sending the house. I mean, I'm not just talking about having your linebackers blitz, sending your front four home, but I mean, at times they even had cornerbacks and safeties blitzing on third down. So again, I think in those cases, why pay a guy $20-25 million? It just doesn't make sense.
Probably too. It's also where the Patriots are as an organization right now, because I think, and I say this to their credit on it, and they could have a good year this year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's due, but I think they planned on this year being one. Okay, we moved on from our old head coach. We're drafting this quarterback. We're going to sit for a year. I don't think I'm going to piss Patriot fans off by saying, well, this was kind of a reset year. We're rebuilding. And again, I always like to say this. It's my theory on this. I think teams are in 4 different states: ascending, rebuilding, in between, or they're elite. And you got to know which state you're in, because so many teams think they're this, but you're actually that. And then you make poor decisions because you think that, oh, we're Patriots, we're elite this year. Pay Judon. Well, wait, he's getting older. How long is he going to last with us on this contract? First, let's save the money. Let's get the pick. Let's see where the season goes. And then, turn around and spend that money down the road when we're actually into that elite stage of things, truly contending. So I think that's part of why the Patriots are a smart organization. Their approach here is that they're, recognize where they are and, what need to do at this time. I think that. Do you think that's also an accurate thing that probably factored into this?
Yeah, and it's funny because the Patriots, the way that they're going to rebuild, and as Seahawks fans, I'm sure it's going to be the way that the Packers have built up their team. Ron Wolf is actually the father of Elliott Wolf, who's the Patriots general manager. And, back in the day when Ron Wolf was the GM for the Packers years and years and years ago, they essentially built that team up to being a Super Bowl championship caliber team by building through the draft, by being young and constantly going towards the draft and not free agency in order to improve your team. And we've started to see that with the Patriots. I mean, they drafted some good caliber players: Drake Maye, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, drafting Joe Milton and getting excellent value with Jaheim Bell in the 7th round at the tight end position. Like, it's very clear that they're doing their due diligence throughout the season with the scouting department to try to improve their team through the draft. And like you mentioned, like, Jerod Mayo has said it several times. Elliott Wolf has said it several times. They understand that this is a multi-year rebuild, and I think that is important. There's so much value in your team understanding their position and going about it the correct way. Like, to me, the Tennessee Titans, you have Will Levis at quarterback. I don't think he's shown a whole lot. Me personally, I don't really believe in him, especially as a 2nd-round pick. I mean, I feel like those quarterbacks don't really hit in recent history unless you're taken in the 1st round. And they went out this offseason, again, with a new head coach and are basically trying to get back into contention in 1 year. That always bites teams in the butt. That bit the Patriots in the butt when they went on this massive spending spree in 2021. Trying to build around Mac Jones after you draft him. You sign Hunter Henry, you sign Jonnu Smith, you sign Judon, you sign Jalen Mills. The fact that the Patriots are doing this right and they understand that we are going to take care of our players. We're going to bring back our core players who are young and they're in their prime. And we're going to let these veterans who are 30 plus years old go, because realistically, they are not going to be here when we start contending. And even if we suck in 2024, even if we suck in 2025, the name of the game really is not necessarily about going to the playoffs and winning postseason games, as great as that would be. Right now, it's about developing your young pieces so that you're essentially, the way that I tell Patriots fans is, you're thinking about the next 10 years. You're not thinking about the next 10 months.
Yeah, I think we're of like mind. I think this is a very smart approach by the Patriots here, because so many teams don't recognize where they're at, or they try to speed that process up. I'm with you on the Tennessee thing. It's a little interesting to watch what they've done trying to rebuild their defense and how they're trying to bring that in. And, they go grab Snead from them. They grab both of our 2 safeties. They're, making trades late. But the Ridley deal, for instance, was absolutely one that's an example of them trying to essentially make right the A.J. Brown deal. The money you weren't willing to give A.J. Brown, you give Ridley, and that's a far cry from the player that A.J. Brown is, a wide receiver. And it just speaks to a situation that's more reactive than it is one that has them looking out far onto the horizon line and planning ahead. And that's what I think does differentiate the teams that can reach to that contending state versus the ones that always find themselves sort of spinning in circles, never quite getting any further. Let's start with the defense, because as I come in as a Seahawks fan into this game, Colby, it does look to me like the biggest threat from your Patriot team in this game does come from that defensive side of the ball. You guys have kind of quietly stacked up some very interesting names. I know we talk about you guys being in a rebuild, but I've got to be honest, looking again through that roster of defensive players, Keon White, Jelani Tavai, Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, Josh Oons, Christian Gonzalez. You got old ass Jonathan Jones still out there making his way around. It's got some guys on this defense, and Keon, especially a guy that I track coming out of Georgia Tech. Guy played on the outside of Georgia Tech. predominant amount of time just by being a monster-sized player. And that's a lot of what you see at college is they'll take these big monsters and put them off as like wide 9 edges at the college level. And you're like, wow, okay. But what that's given him now is true inside out appeal at the NFL level and his ability to be impactful both. I think he had 3 sacks last week or something like that in the game. He had a couple.
Yeah, Keon White popped off, man, and nobody expected Keon White to perform as good as he did. Me personally, I thought Keon White, and you know what? I'm perfectly fine with saying this because if he performs better than I expected, perfectly fine with that. Perfectly fine. But I thought that, with how the Patriots were going to start playing defense, I thought that Keon White could be someone who leads the Patriots in pressures, but he's not going to put up like double-digit sacks on the season. He's not like a Matthew Judon replacement. I thought that he could be somebody like, again, a 2018 version of like a Trey Flowers, who was someone who put up 8-9 sacks for the Patriots, never put up double digits, but he led the Patriots in pressures. And the most important thing is getting pressure on the quarterback. Sacks are great. Sacks are important. Do not get me wrong, but sacks aren't the number one most important thing. The number one most important thing is putting pressure on the quarterback, force him into making mistakes, speed up that internal clock. And if that's what Keon White could do, I thought that was a win. But yeah, now he comes out of this game against a good Bengals offensive line, especially with their tackle duo with Orlando Brown on one end, Trent Brown on the other. That's a lot of size. And he was able to finish this game with 2.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. He absolutely dominated this game, and he didn't even stay at one specific position. I mean, he played in the interior of the defensive line. He played at edge. They found his mismatches in order to actually make him as productive as possible. I think for the Seahawks, this is going to be a much different game than playing against the Broncos. Like, there's a lot of questions about the Patriots, especially offensively, but one thing I don't question at all is this defense. I thought before Judon left, it could be top 5. Then Judon left, Barmore out with blood clots. We don't know when he's going to come back. I said, you know what? Maybe not top 5. There's still potential, but I think at the very least, this is still going to easily be a top 10 defense in the league. I mean, even in the preseason, they were the second highest ranked defense. And then even in the preseason with their special teams, they were the highest ranked special teams. And that's really how the Patriots are going to win games. And it's not even just Keon White on that defensive line that's popping off. Since 2022, Dietrich Wise has led the Patriots in pressures, believe it or not. It's not Barmore. It wasn't Judon. It's Dietrich Wise, who is still here on this team. You have Christian Gonzalez, who, is picking up exactly where he left off last year in his 4 games before he went down with a season-ending injury. A couple stats here against Jamar Chase in this game. When he went up against him, 20 routes, 3 receptions, 14 yards. When he went up against Garrett Wilson last year before getting injured, 23 routes, 3 receptions, 18 yards. Tyreek Hill, 17 routes, 0 receptions, 0 yards, an interception. Jalen Waddle, 4 routes, 1 reception, 15 yards. Devontae Smith, 11 routes, 2 receptions, 22 yards, and a pass breakup. And then A.J. Brown, 19 routes, 4 receptions, 47 yards. Not to mention the fact that the Patriots have the 4th highest graded linebacker with Jelani Tavai, according to PFF. They also have 2 safeties ranked within the top 10, according to PFF, in Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. We also can't forget the fact that the Patriots last year had the best run defense in the entire National Football League, picking up exactly where they left off. And because of that, they're going to be able to make opposing offenses very, very one-dimensional. If you can't run the ball efficiently in a game, the Patriots are going to say, all right, you have to go up against Kyle Duggar. You have to go up against Jabril Peppers. You have to go up against Christian Gonzalez. You're not going to get anything through us on the ground. So now you're going to have to beat us through the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the Gonzalez thing, the thing that strikes me as odd is last week you guys were playing 60% of your snaps in zone, 40% in man. And with Gonzalez coming out of Oregon, I liked him as a player. There was a lot of back and forth between should we go Witherspoon or Gonzalez if we do take a corner in that draft. And we play a lot of zone at that time. So the thinking was maybe go more to Gonzalez because you're going to take Witherspoon. You want to be playing more man. And it does. I've got to say, it's very impressive to see Gonzalez even to be playing 40% man snaps, much less getting matched up with number 1 wide receivers and traveling with them because he was so much in zone at Oregon. I mean, they did not have him playing 40% man snaps in Oregon. He was off coverage, cover 3, bail drop. That's what he was doing, 24/7. So it's been a great part of his growth, even with having the ACL and coming off a torn ACL that hasn't missed a beat coming back off of that this season. But he's a tremendous player, and him and DK are going to probably be going at it all day. And that's a big part of what might determine this matchup is if DK can find some success versus Gonzalez being able to stop him over there on that outside. Because, we saw last week that we're definitely DK is going to get the number 1 corner with him when he goes. And that's the other part though, is, well, maybe try to go to our other targets, but you got quality in the other spots to be able to maybe counter some of that. I think when I do come down to this, I think that, as you mentioned about your guys' run defense is stout. We're probably it's going to be hard grinding yards in there. I think a bit of the key will come down to some of the blitz heavy nature that might exist from the Patriots here with Mayo now. And I did watch that Bengals game, and I was seeing some of that from the Bengals game. I didn't think that Joe Burrow did a good job of dealing with the blitz or the pressure. I didn't think he did a good job of recognizing when it was coming. A lot of these quarterbacks at times will just be in a rush to get the ball snapped when they get up to the line versus taking that beat, taking a full breath, taking a look and assessing what's really coming out around. And the Patriots do a good job of disguising and coming late on the blitz. Don't get me wrong. It's not always easy to see, but I did think there was times Burrow felt a little rushed in his processing coming up that line of scrimmage. And that's, I think, going to be the key on this one with Geno, is recognize when that blitz is there and coming, and that's maybe the point where you can maybe now attack that, because there'll be a little bit more holes on the back end. You can maybe beat some of the man covered concepts, JSN against your slot, Tyler against your two, like with Jones. I'm not saying they're going to dominate, but that's the way, to me, I would see as much in this game of being determined by maybe how much we pass in this game versus your guys' blitzing, because you're going to make it an uphill battle, I think, throughout the course of this game, because, as you said, the defense is so stout.
Yeah, and I mean, Kenneth Walker, obviously a very good running back too for you guys. I think he's going to be better than Zach Moss. I think that he'll definitely have some more production than Zach Moss was able to have last week against the Pats. But like I said, I mean, second best or the best rather run defense in the NFL last year. It's going to be hard to run against this team. And I think one thing you have going for you too is the fact that Geno Smith, he's definitely more mobile than Joe Burrow is. So that's going to add a different element that the Patriots are going to have to keep in mind here. They're not going to be able to just pin their ears back. They're not just going to be able to go straight to the quarterback. They're going to have to kind of stand back a little bit, be a little bit more cautious, because again, Geno can run with the ball when he needs, but as long as you're able to, for the most part, take that run game away from Kenneth Walker, take it away from your Seattle Seahawks, and really for the most part shut down DK Metcalf, you're going to have to kind of operate your offense through either Geno Smith scrambling significantly, or you're going to have to run it through getting it to your other wide receivers, Njigba or Lockett, which are still very good wide receivers. It's going to be a hard matchup for the Patriots because, again, you guys have that ability to run the ball. You guys have that ability to scramble from your quarterback, but you also have a dual threat there with your three wide receivers and Noah Fant. I mean, that's definitely an upgrade at tight end that the Patriots, had to go up against compared to last week with Mike Gesicki. So I think it's going to be a harder matchup, but it's definitely going to be a test for the Patriots because not even Christian Gonzalez played well, but Jonathan Jones played really, really, really good football. He was the second highest graded cornerback in the NFL from week one. So, I mean, I feel like these teams, they match up really, really well against each other to where this is going to be a close game. And I feel like every time the Patriots and the Seahawks play, no matter what the roster is, no matter who the coaches are, it's always a close game and it's always a fun one.
A good point. Absolutely. It has always been that way. And I in recent history, especially, it's going to be a fun matchup, man. In the defense, I think that it's going to be a bit grindy. I think we're going to have to earn our way. We'll probably have to bring out a little Laviska Shenault in there. Don't be surprised if you see him with 5 or 6 manufactured touches just off bubble screen fly sweeps, because the traditional stuff isn't as easy to get there going up against that defense in the way, it is put together. So it's going to be fun. That's the main battle I'm kind of, keeping my key eye on to as we twist to the offense. And before we get to the offense, let's get to Maye. I'd love to hear where your thoughts are on this, because this is one of them. I'm sure you would get this with your chat, and one of the more contentious spots to go into and traverse in this land right now of when to go and get the quarterback of the future. When is the right time? There are the camp that say draft one every year. There's the camp that say just grab them and think about the rest of the roster later. There's those that say put the supporting cast together and get it all in place and then go get the quarterback. Or if you get the quarterback first, have him sit. What is your outlook on how you would look first, absent Drake Maye, just your approach to what you like as far as going to look for the quarterback position? You guys got spoiled with Brady there for 35 years, but where do you look at it from that on how you'd go about it if you were a GM with the quarterback of the future? When to target and when not to, kind of.
Like I kind of mentioned earlier, I think, especially with the quarterback position, you're thinking the next 10 years. You're not thinking about the next 10 months. I feel like you look at some of the best quarterbacks in the league today, some of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, and those guys have sat for a period of time. Tom Brady sat for a period of time, obviously. Aaron Rodgers sat for a period of time. Looking at it even now, exactly. Mahomes sat for almost his entire first season. Jordan Love sat for several years. Justin Herbert sat for a couple of games. I think he would have sat longer if Tyrod Taylor didn't go down with his injury. So, me personally, I believe do not throw your quarterback out there until they are 120% ready. I don't care if your starting quarterback goes down and you need your second string to come up. Have 3 quarterbacks on the roster at that point. Put the other guy in. Because again, you're thinking about the next 10 years, not the next 10 months. And quarterback is the most important position in football. I believe if you can hit on the quarterback position, then your margin of error definitely extends, because if you don't have a quarterback, a consistent quarterback, a good and elite quarterback, pretty much the rest of your roster has to play perfect. And, even Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy is better than the 7th round pick, but Brock Purdy in that Super Bowl, man, like, I don't know if I would say Brock Purdy is elite as much as he is maybe a product of the team around him, because in that Super Bowl, he had several times to put that game away, right? And he didn't, especially in overtime. Missed throws. The opportunity seemed a little bit too big for him. As where if you have an elite quarterback, they can just make the team around them look better. They can make up for some of those deficiencies throughout the game. And if they can be clutch, I think that's one of the most important aspects. So looking for the Patriots in terms of here of Drake Maye, don't throw him out there until he's 120% ready. You have a great defense. You have a great special teams. The offense, especially the O-line, it's not good. So until he is 120% confident in your system, knows the playbook like the back of his hand, there is absolutely no reason to throw him out there, especially because in the Patriots specific position, why do they need to win games right now? Why do they need to go to the playoffs right now? Nobody's expecting it. The fan base, the league, it's okay to be bad for a year. It's okay to be bad for 2 years. Because, again, I don't care about making the playoffs this year. I care about going and contending for Super Bowls for the next 10. And like we mentioned, like the blueprint that you and I just laid out, there is true value in sitting your quarterbacks. And Tom Brady has said that himself. It feels like in today's league, everything is sped up. You want to get them out there. You want to contend right away. You want to be good. The patience for quarterbacks, the patience for players isn't there, especially from fan bases and the league, the Patriots organization. They need to be smart enough to ignore the noise from the fan base, whether Jacoby Brissett's balling out or he sucks. They need to be able to stand pat and say, we are not throwing him out there until we're ready. And I think that when they signed Jacoby Brissett, they sat him down and they said, this is our plan. Maybe they said Drake Maye's going to take over after week 4. Maybe they said he's going to take over the second half of the season. Maybe they said he's going to play the final 4 games of the season, or maybe they said he's not going to play at all. We don't know. But I think that when they signed him, they gave Jacoby a blueprint. When they drafted Maye, they told him that blueprint. And no matter how the team performs, good or bad, that is the blueprint that they are going to stick with. A lot of Patriots fans were screaming that the Patriots shouldn't have drafted a quarterback with the 3rd overall pick, that they need to go Marvin Harrison Jr. because they don't have receivers and the situation around your quarterback needs to be perfect. I don't believe in that. You know how hard it is to make the situation around your quarterback perfect, to have an elite defense, a top defense in the league, to have a number 1 wide receiver, to have a top offensive line, a top tight end, a top running back. There are very, very few teams in the league that have that. If you can hit on that quarterback position, it changes the trajectory of your team significantly. Look at the Texans last year. Nobody expected D'Amico Ryans to do anything year 1. Nobody expected the Texans to be this good, to go to the playoffs last year and win a playoff game, be in the contention for a potential Super Bowl run this year. But because they hit on CJ Stroud, they immediately went on an upward trajectory. And it could be the same thing with the Patriots. If you have an opportunity to get your franchise quarterback, you take it at all costs, whether he plays for you that year or not, whether you have to give up every asset to get him. If you can get your guy at that position, you don't second guess, you do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a guy that is, I think we're pretty much of like mind in the same place with this word. I certainly am in favor of sitting the guy the first year. I think and letting him really get the time to develop until he is ready. I think you're right about the whole disposable. I've related it to taking your child to the deep end without the floaties, throwing him into the deep end without teaching him how to swim. He drops to the bottom and then you just look over and go, okay, babe, I guess we got to make another child. And it's a little bit of that approach, it feels like, from some teams and how they look at the QB position, where that's where I do maybe come up to the point where I go, I just ain't going to draft one just to draft. Because if it comes to that spot, we're just drafting when we don't have any supporting cast there. Because that's the other thing is you put these out there because there is that draw to get them on the field. You don't have the supporting cast out there. The draw gets them on the field. Now they start getting crushed. Now they're seeing ghosts. Now they're a shell of themselves. Now you just develop them poorly and wrong, the complete opposite direction of how you should have. But I do like that if you're going to draft and you don't have the supporting cast, a little bit like the Patriots did here with Maye, you sit him on that and don't throw him there to the wolves and go just learn, just figure it out. I think this is the better way. You mentioned a few names that are legendary names in this sport who benefited from having that year. Aaron Rodgers, 3 years behind Favre before he went out there. And I think it's a big benefit to these young kids to be able to do it. And I don't understand why it's so kind of commonplace to just throw them right out. Just throw them out. What do you got? Throw them right out. Like Washington's with Jaden Daniels right now. Like they're going to get Jaden Daniels probably killed, especially these mobile guys, because they're going to want to use their legs and they're not going to slide. And he's a crash test dummy out there in the open field and he's going to get hurt. And Washington's going to be like, who could have seen this coming?
Exactly. And Brandon, one thing I'll even throw out to you is the word confidence, right? I don't necessarily think there's a lot of positions where you need confidence necessarily to succeed, but I think there's two very important positions in football where confidence is probably just as important, if not more important than the physical side of things. And that's quarterback and that's kicker. If you get in your head and your confidence drops, you're just going to be overthinking. You're going to get in your head and you're not going to be performing well. And I think that to an extent, that's what we saw from Mac Jones last year. Like the offensive line was so bad that internal clock got sped up. He started to look like crap. He got in his own head. Now you're getting crap from the fan base and everything goes to complete crap. That's the last thing you want to do with Drake Maye, because Drake Maye is the type of quarterback where he can excel in offense past its limitations. He can make a lackluster receiver core, lackluster tight end core, lackluster running back core look a lot better than it actually is. But he needs at least the time to do that, right? He needs the O-line to protect him and give him times in order to show that physical capability. So, even for me, letting him sit, making sure he has that confidence and that confidence stays intact, but also making sure that when he takes over, you at least have a consistent offensive line combination so that he doesn't get his internal clock sped up. And so the same thing that happened to Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi last year doesn't happen to your franchise quarterback.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's something that you see over and over, a variety of different places. Then it does happen. These quarterbacks get that damage built up, and it's like they can't help it. You start flinching for things that aren't there, and it's like, and you get a bunch of tough guys on their couches going, "Stand tall, stand tall." He's been getting bashed right and left week after week for a long period of time now. That's going to accumulate and add up. And it's funny you do mention Mac Jones, because I think that's another lesson with this, which is if you're going to take a first-round quarterback, get a guy that has real, true physical ability. Don't get me the big brainiac that processes all over the place. And I love processing. That's my number 2 skill for a quarterback I like, but right behind arm strength. It's why I didn't like the Mac Jones pick for you guys, but I do like a lot the Drake Maye pick for you guys, because it's two opposite ends of that scale, in my opinion, on one of why you don't draft for those guys. Same thing, I wouldn't draft a guy that's a 6'1", 185-pound quarterback. There's limitations they're walking into the door with that you have to now overcome, no matter what gifts they might bring to the table. Do you see it the same way with the sort of Mac Jones too? I know you mentioned a little bit the sort of supporting cast, but just on maybe their talent level.
Yeah, I've had Patriots fans even try to tell me. I've had my buddies in the same division over on the AFC East roundtable get on my butt and be like, "Oh, Colby, like, what are you talking about? Like, this is just Mac Jones 2.0." It's like, if you're saying that, you don't know football. You're looking at him, you're saying he's a first-round quarterback that the Patriots drafted and he's white, and that's all you know. These are day and night differences at the quarterback position. I mean, if you think about it, like Drake Maye, I don't think his internal processing is bad, but that's not what he's known for. It's not his bread and butter. Like he has all the physical talents in the world. Like if you're going to cook up a quarterback in a shop, Drake Maye is going to come out. He has the mobility. He has the arm strength. He's, again, everything what Mac Jones wasn't. Mac Jones was known for really just being a game manager. He was super smart, super accurate, knew where to put the ball, but he didn't have a big arm. He didn't have that mobility. He didn't have that big play potential. Drake Maye does. And that's, again, why you're sitting him, is because once he gets comfortable from a mental standpoint and he knows the playbook like the back of his hand, those physical attributes that we saw at the collegiate level, they're going to come out, because he's not going to be second guessing. He's not going to be just that little tick behind, and those physical traits are just naturally going to come out. Again, I think anybody comparing Drake Maye to Mac Jones, they clearly don't know the actual style of play between these two quarterbacks.
No, they're completely different. And my comp was Stafford for Maye. And there's nobody that was making no Stafford comp for Mac Jones coming out. So I don't, you know, it's, you can just see it coming out. He was in that spread offense. He's just, you know, lollipopping balls around the field. Even his pro day, you're watching and going, whew, man, there's no velocity here. There's no ability to push the ball down the field. And I do think with Maye, you did see at times at UNC, it was that it flashed, and this is what gives you the confidence it'll be there in the long term. The processing was there. It just wasn't there consistently playing and play out. But you'd see moments of plays where it's 1, 2, 3, 4 coming back over here to the far side read and then letting it rip. And you go, okay, he can grow that part of his game. It is there. It's just not at the forefront right now at the moment. Let's look at this offense a little bit. This is the place where I feel like maybe we can, you know, make some hay. We're defensively feeling ourselves a little bit too. Like you guys are feeling yourself defensively after week 1. Now you guys had, I think, a little bit more reason to feel yourself on the road in Cincinnati against a Bengals team that only was really down T. Higgins. You know, Jamar's out there. And they've been very prolific offensively when they've had Burrow and Chase both on the field at the same time. And you guys really did shut them down, but we're feeling good about ours. We do, I think, some similar things where there's a lot of variance here from man to zone and mixing up coverages on the back end and willing to run stack boxes and then, you know, run a variety of things under that. We got to stop your guys' run game first. That seems to be the first place where Ramondre Stevenson, real fun back coming out, and he's been really developed for you guys as a runner. Kind of can do it all, can he? He can attack from the inside, run hard inside. He can give you some moves to the outside. He's got a little bit of juice to get to the edge, but a really good back in this league.
Yeah, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, I mean, an absolute dog. To me, before the season even started, I said my projected MVP for the Patriots this season, it's not Drake Maye, it's not Jacoby Brissett, it's not one of these receivers. It's Ramondre Stevenson. And I said that he was going to be the first person to score a touchdown in this game. And that's exactly what happened. Like, he is the Patriots offense and what he's able to do. I mean, if you look at it, that final drive for the Patriots offensively, where you knew they were going to run the ball, they just needed to run out that clock. Don't give the Bengals the ball back. Down by 6. They crowded the box. I mean, the Bengals didn't have anybody deep on that final Patriots offensive drive. They crowded the heck out of that box. They sent everybody towards Ramondre. Ramondre still able to pick up 5 yards. Ramondre still rushed for 2 first downs there. It's like, how are you going to send the house at this guy? And with a bad offensive line, still let him be patient behind there and still let him nick you apart. Like, it really is much easier said than done, because it's not as easy as, well, let's crowd the box. Let's just send everybody at him and that's going to stop him. That's not the case, you know? And with this Patriots offense, I really think the way to beat them, right? The way to beat them is through this offensive line, because despite us winning, despite us putting up 16 points, the Patriots had still one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines in the league last week. They were the worst offensive line in terms of pass blocking in the 2023 season completely, in terms of every single pass blocking metric. Like, they were the worst offensive line, and they just did not do enough to make it better. They allowed just under, it's like 40 points, 48 points, something like that, 47 point something, pass rush percentage allowed. So, like, they let the Bengals give it to the Patriots offense and Jacoby Brissett, but they were still able to make something out of it. Jacoby Brissett extending plays and scrambling and whatnot. But like you said, like, you guys made plays defensively. You guys made plays defensively last week that let you come back from behind, let you win this game. And again, it's very different because, you know, the Patriots defense, they went up against a very, very experienced offense. Joe Burrow, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Jamar Chase, a top 5 wide receiver in the league. Some people trying to say that he was limited. Jamar Chase wasn't limited. You know, he was ghosted with like this fake illness because he wasn't sure if he was going to play or not. He didn't play much throughout practice that week because he wasn't happy with his contract. It was a game time decision for Jamar Chase on if he was going to play because he's not happy with that contract. And he ended up being a good enough person to say, you have T. Higgins out, whatever, I'll put my contract, just pledges aside and still play. And they still couldn't get much out of it. You know, I love the Seahawks defense, and it scares the heck out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. I think you guys are dominant. You're going to be one of the best defenses in the league. You have so much potential, but you also went up against a Broncos team that, you know, they don't have a lot of firepower, but they definitely do have more firepower than the Patriots. One thing, though, is that they were a new team. with a new and rookie quarterback. That's one thing that the Seahawks won't have in this game. They're going up against veterans. Even the Patriots offensive coordinator in Alex Van Pelt, I mean, he was the same guy that was the quarterback's coach for Aaron Rodgers when he first came into the league, that developed Aaron Rodgers. So this is an experienced offensive coordinator that the Patriots have, an experienced quarterback behind center. It's not going to be as easy into making him make mistakes and force him into making mistakes. And really, I feel like the name of the game for the Seahawks is, if you can force the Patriots, if you can do the same thing that you did last week, force this team to make 1 or 2 turnovers, I think it's a very good chance that you guys come out with the win in this game.
Yeah, I think it's I think you accurately kind of put together here. And again, your performance defensively does become more impressive, I think, because going into Cincinnati, it was impressive for our stance points because our offense and our special teams put them into such predicaments in that game over and over, and they kind of stood tall against it. When it comes down to, though, the Bengals and the Hawks defensively, when watching that game with your Patriots, Bengals run their front four. And when you have a front four like that, and you're a very strictly four-man front, you don't like to do as much stack box stuff. You're not as used to it. You got guys more used to 2-gap and then having that freedom to roll around all over the place. Like you see Hendrickson, where, man, he'll just take that far edge around sometimes and he'll create pressure, but he'll take a lot of edge around that print, leave the door open at times, even for a kind of slower quarterback like Brissett to get free. Whereas with our defense, there's more 3-4 bases, which I think right out the front helps in stopping the run versus that 4-man front. You saw the Bengals early in that game get really gashed. It's not gashed, but just 5-6 yard runs here from Stevenson, just kind of pecking at them through, where they kept getting widened out of their gap, and the four wasn't enough men down there to kind of make it happen. The stack boxes that we run kind of naturally, I think, also lend that to, because then now it's more about understanding your gap integrity when you're running those stack boxes versus we don't run the stack boxes. We got 4-mans and we're running safeties down into a gap that they don't normally play. They're normally back there playing their deep cover 2 zone or cover 3 zone or into the flat. So I think that's where we maybe schematically have a little bit of a way to counter that versus what the Bengals did on to you guys defensively to first take that run away. And then again, with McDonald's defense, I think part of what really is the part that'll really challenge, I think, Brissett, and he's a veteran quarterback. So this is where I think you guys have definitely a bit of a benefit here, where he's been around, he's seen a lot of stuff. But that fluctuation of the defense and the fact that, really what you've gotten from McDonald is he's taken Wink Martindale's defense and sort of taken out the full, we're going to blitz 24/7 approach of it. It'll be more of we're right in the middle of the road in our blitz rate, but you just can't ever tell what you're going to see pre to post snap. Everything is constantly in a change of fluctuating state, and we're comfortable kind of running everything at you. It's going to be a fun battle, and we got to take away your guys' run first. But if we can do that and I can force Jacoby Brissett to beat me, if I can turn this game into that, I'm going to like our chances on that side of it if I can. I think that he's functional for you guys. If he can stand tall and deliver the ball and he's got somewhat of a clean pocket, he can be good. He's got a good arm on that. But if you can disrupt him, I felt like when there was some pressure in there, there's times it does change a little bit, I think, on that side of it for him as a thrower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even in that game against the Bengals, I mean, like there was 3 or 4 times where they allowed an inside rusher and a linebacker to blitz them, and nobody picked it up. And what you have to keep in mind too is this is a very different offensive scheme than we're used to seeing, because with Alex Van Pelt's offense, they don't ask the quarterback to kind of diagnose the defense and to switch up kind of that cadence there. Like, they ask the center to do all of that work and revert it back to the quarterback. And so this is a lot of new things for this offense. This is very new for Patriots veteran center David Andrews, who never had to do that before. All he had to worry about was, I'm going to snap the ball, I'm going to block for you, and that's going to be just about it. And that's what the question's going to be here, because if they allow the same thing to happen, sooner or later, something's going to go wrong, right? Either Jacoby Brissett's going to get sacked, or he's going to get injured, or he's going to get strip sacked. He's going to fumble the ball. He's going to throw an interception. It was like, as soon as the ball was snapped, you just had linebackers shooting through the gaps, completely unblocked, and making plays on him. And that is the last thing you want to. And you hope that they can make that fix for this week. But if they don't, that could be a very big difference between the Patriots winning this game and the Patriots losing this game.
Yeah, because that's the staying in the third and shorts too is a big part of this, right? Keep yourself out of the third and nines. We were able to force the Broncos to kind of live in that. But if you can run the ball relatively well in early downs, you give Jacoby quick, easy throws with Van Pelt that are very structured and well put together to get somebody opened up on those shorter routes. I think that's where your Patriots can find a little hay to be made against this defense. But I do then think that defense is going to be challenged in those protections and in a way that the Cincinnati couldn't, because Cincinnati is a team at the end of the day just wants to run its front four and drop its guys back into coverage. And we learned this with our old Carroll defense at times. When we tried to become a blitz heavy team with the front four, it was kind of like guys trying to write with their left hand. it wasn't something that was really comfortable. And versus those schemes and defenses that have it all pre-baked and built in, and that they work on those little nuances like your Patriots teams do. I mean, your Patriot defense is the same way, where it's in the DNA of the defense. You're not trying to make it happen in the moment because we got to stop the run. So we just got to bring all these people up near the line of scrimmage. And it's different on a discipline fundamental standpoint versus one defense to the other, I think. But that's, if I'm Mike McDonald in this, I'm running so many stack fronts on Jacoby Brissett, and I'm doing everything I can to try to challenge the protections of the Patriots in this game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think you hit the nail on the head there perfectly.
I'm a little behind on a few things here. Barry Soy Toro, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. I really appreciate you for doing that, Barry. And welcome to the house, man. It's good to see you. I know you're joining back. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. The Patriots game is going to be harder than we thought, but NFC West is not going to let them run the ball like that. Your quarterback is going to have to throw.
Yeah, that's the way to beat the Patriots, right? Like, if you want to beat the Patriots, you're saying we're taking Ramondre away. You're not going to have a running game, and you're going to have Jacoby Brissett, Hunter Henry, Demario Douglas essentially beat you. Like, that is the Patriots' biggest scare, right? Like, if you're a Patriots fan, you're sitting back and you're like, dear God, if Ramondre can't get going, like, you're screwed. You need him to essentially rush for at absolute minimum 80 total rushing yards per game. And really, that's the philosophy, right? That's the philosophy on how the Patriots are going to want to win games offensively. They're running this West Coast offense. Quarters 1, quarter 2, you're going to see them passing the ball a lot more frequently than quarters 3 and quarters 4. What they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get a lead. They're going to try to extend that lead as much as humanly possible. Rely on that defense, rely on that special teams, especially in the first half, to keep the opposing offense off the scoreboard as much as possible. Then they'll go into halftime and then come out of halftime with a lead, and they're going to try and run the ball as much as possible, dominate time of possession as much as possible, and keep the opposing offense off of the field as much as possible in the second half so that they can preserve that lead as much as they possibly can. The Patriots aren't trying to blow out anybody. They're not trying to put up a 50 burger. They're not trying to beat you by 20 plus points. They're just trying to win games, whether it's by 3 points, whether it's by 6 points, whether it's by 10 points. Like, they are just trying to win by any means necessary.
Oh, and you have it, and when you have the commitment to the run like this, and you have a defense that's as good as yours, the defense is going to keep you in games. And so there's less of that need to have to put up as many of those points because you can rely back on that defense to do it. It does seem like, too, I've been watching that game in the first game, that there's going to be a good amount of 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets coming out for your Patriots team, which, again, I think just made it hard on the Bengals, man, because you got that 4-man front you come up with, right? And you guys came out with the 12 personnel, and suddenly now you've got 7 for 4 kind of in how you can set that up, but on just into relation at what's at the line of scrimmage and how you can block that up, especially on duo blocks and combo blocking to create holes at the point of attack. And that's where I like, again, coming back in this game for my Hawks about McDonald here and saying, hey, we see the 12 personnel, we're going 3-4. We'll live in 3-4, our 3-4 defense, which, you know, now the 3-4 defense, yes, it's still a defense in the NFL, but it's really kind of out now. It's more, even the 3-4 teams are running the 4-mans with the 2 defensive tackles tight and the wide 9s to the edges. So there's that space between the 2. So it's not even really a 3-4 anymore. It's kind of this like modified thing because they're all nickel. But I'd go more to that 3-4 in this team because just you can't let you guys run. You guys start running, like you said, you guys aren't going to overthink this. You're not going to like, oh, we're running good, let's get back to the pass. Hey, we're running good, we're going to stay with it. We'll keep banging on you with it, and we'll keep hammering with it. And I think that's where we've got to, kind of begin. And those tight ends are pretty good. We got Hunter Henry, who's a longtime guy, been in this league, very good tight end for the Chargers for many years. And he's been solid for you, good all around kind of tight end, can do inline stuff and a good pass catcher. And then Hooper, who's more of your H-back kind of tight end, but he can do your traditional stuff and more of the pass catcher and what he supplies, right? Is that kind of what those two both kind of bring to the table right now?
Yeah, and when they signed Austin Hooper, I mean, it made nothing but sense. This is a guy that's not as good as he used to be. I think that if you ask him to be your tight end 1, it's a definitely a low-end tight end 1, but he can be a high-end number 2. During his time with Atlanta, back when they went to the Super Bowl against my Patriots, like, he was one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Unfortunately, when he started to bounce around to a couple different teams, the Titans, the Browns, whatnot, he just started to not look as good. But he also knows this system like the back of his hand. He played in the Browns system under Alex Van Pelt, who is now the Patriots offensive coordinator, back in 2022. So again, the signing made nothing but sense. I was surprised. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I was surprised when we came out of this game running as much 12 personnel as we did, because with Alex Van Pelt's West Coast offense, he was known with the Cleveland Browns to run a lot of 13 personnel, running those extra wide receivers. But I think because of the lack of talent, the lack of not even just talent, but the lack of chemistry and continuity within this system from these wide receivers, at least at first, they are going to run a lot of 12 personnel, like I said, especially in the beginning of the season. And surprisingly, like Austin Hooper, I mean, he led the Patriots in receiving yards last week. And if you would have told me that was going to happen, I would have told you that you were absolutely crazy. Both of his or 2 out of his, I think 3 receptions that he had came on third down and big conversion. So this is a guy that, Jacoby Brissett, he's going to go to in those times of need. And these tight ends at the end of it were definitely the most targeted weapons that the Patriots had in that game. And I think that's going to be a big piece of them moving forward while they tried to build chemistry with the rookies, Javon Baker and Jalen Polk, and then also trying to get KJ Osborne acclimated, who they signed in free agency from the Vikings.
Yeah, he's Hooper can catch. He can run routes. And the thing with the Browns when he signed that big free agent contract, and they did do a good amount of two tight ends there. They still to this day with Stefanski, they like their share of 2 tight end fronts out there. But what hurt him a little bit when he signed that contract is, remember, that was the same point in time they drafted David Njoku. So you got a David Njoku, you pick in the second round. There's going to be a pull from Cleveland to get him out of the forefront, which then puts Hooper a little bit into the back seat. But then that's not because Hooper's not a good player. It's just because you're going to try to validate your second round pick of David Njoku at that point. So still a good player, still a guy that can supply some things. Wide receivers are where I think we can have a little advantage of you. We love our secondary right now. Julian Love has really come on. Our 2 corners, I think, are maybe going to have an argument to be made to be as good of 2 corners, at least in coverage, as you'll find in this league in Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen. I like the 2 guys you took in the draft. And you're talking about doing the inverse of what some Pats fans wanted. Let's get Marvin Harrison, and then we'll wait on the quarterback. And I like the way you guys did it with this, where we got Drake Maye, and then we went and took Jalen Polk and Javon Baker out of UCF, because I think both of those 2 guys will be players long term. I want to see what you think about this, because you haven't heard my theory. I love my comps, man. Okay, Colby, I'm a comp guy. I liked with Jalen Polk and watching his tape in the UW local guy, watched a lot of him. I thought that there were some real shades there of Odell to his game.
Wow.
And I don't think he's necessarily as good, but if you watch the way he attacks the ball in the air with his hands and the way he can he's got that explosive leaping style where it's that, it's like Zion Williamson in basketball, where it's not about necessarily jumping high, but it's how quickly you get to the height of your leap. And with Jalen, he's got that a little bit to his game. Now, I don't think he's going to be as good. Admittedly, this is why he won the second round versus with the first round. But I was really, he had the third guy in the mix there in UW, so not as much feature there. It wasn't a matter of he wasn't good. It's just that you had so many guys to throw to. There was only so many balls to go around. I like him. What do you think on that as a comp?
Yeah, so I mean, like for me, Jalen Polk, the comp that I had was like a souped up Jacoby Myers, who obviously the Patriots know very, very well. I think they're going to utilize him like that too. Like, if he becomes Odell, I don't care if it's Odell in the beginning of his career or Odell a couple of years ago. If they can get any shades of him, I will absolutely take it. For me, the way that I projected both of these wide receivers, and I really liked both of them during the process, so I was ecstatic when the Patriots took both of them. I thought that Jalen Polk is going to be a very, very comfortable number 2 guy. Is he ever going to be a number 1? I don't think so. I hope he goes past my expectations and can become a number 1, but I think that comfortably he's going to be confidently a number 2, a guy that you can line up as the X, you can line up as the Z if you need to. You really can line him up everywhere in the slot, out wide, but he's also going to give you what you wanted after the catch. With Jacoby Myers, the Patriots had a reliable guy that they can go to on third down, catches everything that was thrown his way, always gets open, but the problem is he would catch the ball, he goes down. Jacoby Myers did nothing after the catch. That's why the Patriots let him go in Vegas in free agency, and they signed Juju. They wanted a guy who could do something with the ball in his hands, the yak ability, and Jacoby Myers didn't have that. With Jalen Polk, since he's gotten here, he's been balling out. Literally since minicamp, this guy has been rolling with the Patriots' first-team offense. He did it the entire time in training camp. He's going to be a big vocal point to the Patriots offense very, very early on. Didn't really get to see much of him last week. I mean, he was targeted only one time, 1 reception, almost shook off a couple of defenders to pick up yards after the catch. But I think it's only a matter of time before we see Jalen Polk definitely get a lot more acclimated with how good he is in terms of that yak ability. We saw a little bit of that against the Eagles preseason week 2, where he was able to dodge off a couple of Eagles defenders, one of which was the veteran in James Bradberry. You see the potential there. And I think with Javon Baker. I think it's the opposite. I think Javon Baker could be boom to where he could be a number 1 wide receiver, or he's going to be like a number 3 or number 4, and there's like no in between. It's boom or it's bust. That's how I feel about Baker.
That's fair with him. He'll at least, even if he's kind of busty, give you the big play stuff with it, where, okay, you can't rely on him to run a bunch of the full route tree, but he can get over the top on a 9 route and occasionally on a guy. So at the very least, he gives you, and you talked about the Packer way and the Elliott Wolf way. What's the Packer way with the wide receivers? When we ain't taking one in the first round, we'll go second, third round, and we will develop them with time. And something that you like with this, with Maye and getting them connected with Maye early on, is that there's a real, we think about offensive line and chemistry and cohesion being a big part of their success, but a big part of these quarterback receiver combinations is having that 3-4 years of having played and practiced together to where they're on that telekinesis, psychic-like level of being able to just, look at each other on a read and be able to know what the other's thinking. And you're going to be able to build that, I think, with these 2 young guys there too, which is going to be, again, is part of why I think this is a smart process. You've mentioned it many times here with the Patriots, and that they're taking a long-term view to everything here. And that's only going to be that much more better chance than that you're able to build about great success from it. That you guys are able to get back potentially as becoming a contender, in my belief, at least. So, well, let's get to the, as we kind of turned over, is there any other kind of battles that we should be aware of from your standpoint, or a player that we haven't maybe talked about in this upcoming game from a Hawk fan that we should be kind of more aware of coming in this, be it on either on the offense or defensive side of the ball?
Not really. I feel like when it comes to the offense, it's Ramondre Stevenson. And if you can shut down Ramondre Stevenson, then I feel pretty confident. One name that I will tell you is that they were trying to get KJ Osborne going. They were trying to get the former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver going in that game. He was the most targeted wide receiver. He was the most targeted individual player in that entire game. There was just some chemistry problems, some miscommunications, some, passes that were a little bit too high there from Jacoby Brissett. So I think that's someone they're going to try to definitely get going in this game too. So maybe that's a low-key player you watch. But again, you shut down Ramondre Stevenson offensively, and I think that you guys have a pretty good chance of walking away with this. Defensively, I mean, there's a lot of guys, right? There's a guy at any given moment in any phase at linebacker, the secondary, the defensive line that can make a play. You're definitely going to have to stop Keon White. That is definitely the Patriots' best pass rusher. Like I mentioned earlier on in the stream, 2 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and a forced fumble against Joe Burrow and that very good offensive line that Cincinnati has. But even that cornerback duo, I mean, even if DK gets shut down by Christian Gonzalez, which he's went up against very, very good number 1 wide receivers who can be comparable to DK, and he's been able to shut them down. So I feel confident he'll be able to do that here, limit DK to somewhere between 40, 50 yards maximum. But you have Jonathan Jones on the other side, probably going up against Lockett. So you're probably going to have to run your offense through Kenneth Walker and Najigba, because let's keep in mind, Jonathan Jones, like I mentioned, was the 2nd best cornerback in the NFL in week 1. And one thing that I'll also say is bend but don't break. Even when you think you're getting something on the Patriots, the Bengals are finally charging the ball down the field. The Patriots were able to force them to turn the ball over. These defensive players, they are trained to punch the ball out in a variety of different ways. Even on special teams, the lawn snapper was able to get in and make a play on special teams and punch the ball out on their punt returner. So this team is going to find ways to make plays on special teams and is going to find ways to make plays there defensively.
It's going to be a tough it's going to be a tough fight here, Colby. I don't think this is an easy game for us in respect. I think this is potentially one that comes down the wire on this, and we're going to get your prediction to finish this off. But the one thing I want to do before we get your prediction is let's do what we do here at the Hawks Nest, which is Colby has been kind enough to give me an hour of his time here. He is running 24/7 in the middle of this season. He is doing everything he can to get content out, yet he took time away here to come over and hang out with us and talk this game. So let's show him some love back if we could. And what I mean by that is go down in the description, link below, down in the description section, you'll find a link directly to Patriot Global here on YouTube. Sub up. Give him a sub here for coming on in here and chopping up. At least we can do as far as from our standpoint to give him a little bit of love on that, as he's been so kind to come on in here. Please do that if you could on that side of it. Let's get down to the prediction time. Let's see where the rubber meets the road here with you, Colby. Okay, you're pretty level-headed. You're pretty for the most part unbiased here on what I'm getting from you. So let's get the final prediction on Sunday here on this game. How do you see it playing out, and a final score?
Final score. So look, first off, I want to say thank you, obviously, for having me on, Brennan. Shout out to all the Seahawks fan. I mean, y'all are very respectable, right? You guys have a diehard team. I always love watching the Seahawks. I know that's wild because of what happened in the Super Bowl. You might think that I hate your team, or maybe you guys hate our team, whatever. But honestly, I've always enjoyed always enjoyed watching the Seahawks. Norbcam is another one of my good friends that I've worked closely with over the last few years. And, whether it's you YouTubers or your fan base, you guys are always very respectful. Your team's fun to watch. You're always good game in and year in and year out. So a lot of respect there for you guys. So I appreciate you for having me on. As for this game, so look, when the schedule came out, I said the Patriots were losing this game. When I dropped my final record prediction and I recorded it, it's going to be dropping on my channel probably today. I recorded it a couple days ago, though. I did say that the Patriots were going to lose this game. And I feel like I got to stick with my punches on this one. As a Patriots fan, I want to say we win this game. The mentality in New England is so different. I've never seen the vibes this good. Like, it has been so long that we haven't seen this team fighting for each other, the vibes being good, the Patriots owner getting emotional during that post-game stream, like the coaching staff just showing their love and appreciation for the players. Even after that win, Jabril Peppers, the Patriots safety, saying, this is what we do, cursing, like giving Jerod Mayo the ice bucket dump there with the Gatorade. Like, the vibes are high, and they are going to be riding that high into this game. They hear the noise. They know that everybody's doubting them. Everybody thinks they're going to suck. Everybody thinks they're going to have the number 1 overall pick. The players know that. They've acknowledged it. They are going to carry that mentality into this game. And that's why, like, I do think the Patriots can definitely win this game. This game really could go either way. It is going to come down to the wire, just like it always does. But I feel like I haven't seen enough from this team. I feel like there's a lot we still need to see from the Seahawks, but there's a lot we need to see from the Patriots, okay? It's a new quarterback, 2 new quarterbacks at that. You also have a new defensive coordinator, some new pieces on that coaching staff defensively, an entire new coaching staff on the offensive side of the football, from wide receiver to quarterback to running back, a new offensive coordinator, new general manager, a new head coach. We don't know how this team's going to be, right? We need to consistently see it, not just 1 week, but multiple weeks. Also, this is the Patriots season opener. I think that's one thing the Patriots will have going for them, is that after week 1, Patriots fans are going to be hyped. They are going to be going crazy. But under Jerod Mayo, are the Patriots going to be better on the road, or are they going to be better at home? Each team is either better at home or better on the road. We just don't know under Jerod Mayo and Elliott Wolf and Jacoby Brissett what that team is going to look like. So for right now, I feel like, respectfully, I have to go. As much as the Patriots fan in me wants to say that we are going to win this game. And again, I do believe there is a chance. But I feel like until we see consistency from both of these teams, especially mine, I have to roll with my original predictions, and that's the Seahawks. That's the Seahawks. So I think it's going to be a closer scoring game. I think that this could be like something that comes down to maybe a field goal. So maybe like 14-17 Seahawks.
I think it's a fair score to be landing on, and great points on your part. I think all the way around on this, you talked about the start of the show a little bit about the buy-in and how hard that was starting to feel like that was getting from the prior regime. And this is that thing I go back to on the mirroring a little bit of our franchises, where we both had to make this sort of hard decision for the same reason, but we were also looking to gain this certain other thing. Schematics, did you want to have all that? Do you want that stuff to be upgraded? Yes, but I think that you touched on it. The hardest thing in this new modern age, the place we've transitioned into this new modern age, is how to get the buy-in of this new generation of player. The old type of player bought in. The old type of player, this wasn't as hard a bridge to cross. You have to be a little more creative now to get yourself there. And it would seem after where we're at, not just after week 1 here, Colby, but through training camp, because this is something I would offer. Is not just something of a week 1 thing. It's something that is a buy-in you felt with Mayo and this team throughout training camp. And that I think we can both say, regardless of how the outcome of this game goes, is that we've got our teams with these young players buying into these young coaches, that their message is resonating. And that's almost the more important thing than the X's and O's in this day and age, that you get them really buying into you and fully committed to the process.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to be committed. I think from the fan base, we're committed into what we're seeing. I think there are a lot of questions, but after, week one, I think the fan base is definitely switching up. But I believe that the players believe in the process. I believe that they're buying into the philosophy, and I believe the coaching staff is doing the same thing. And at the end of the day, man, I'm excited to see football. Right now, it's a lot of X's and O's. It's a lot of speculation. But like I alluded to not too long ago, what is this team? Because you can't really base a team off of 1 week specifically. You have to base a team off of how they are throughout multiple games and kind of get your takeaways, both the positives and the negatives from that. So I think that we're going to learn a lot about both of our teams here. And yeah, like I said, it's going to be a fun game. I love watching the Pats play. I love watching the Seahawks play. These matchups are always fun. And Seahawks fans, I mean, as much as I want to see my team win, of course, I wish you guys nothing but the best. I hope both of our teams stay healthy, most importantly, because the last thing I want is the Patriots to like win this game because one of your top players goes down. No, I want this to be a game where everybody stays healthy and it goes up against our best players to your best players, and the best team wins at the end of the game.
Well said. Well said. I feel the same very way. And please do, again, folks in the chat here, go to Patriots Global or click down the description link section below. Get subbed up over to my man Colby there, as he does great work on that side of it. I know I said one question, but one last question. This is just sort of a yes or no thing here. Belichick have a job as a head coach next year?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say it's in the NFC. I think that the Eagles, I don't think they're going to be as good as people say. I think Nick Sirianni is going to fumble the bag again. I think he ends up getting fired. Bill Belichick ends up in Philly.
I was going to say Cowboys. See, I'm going on Cowboys on this one.
Okay.
You got McCarthy lame ducked out. You know, I think they've already. I think that they've already got a contract written, and that they're just that Jerry's just sitting there. I'm going to sit here. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait and get my Belichick. Because you remember Parcells went through there, so an acolyte of Belichick at one point. So I'm just saying that. But yeah, hey, I can see the Eagles too.
As long as it ends up in that division, right? As long as it ends up in that division, me and you were right on at least what division it was going to be. So yeah.
Well, here's the thing: if it's not those two, then it's probably the Giants.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So at the end of the day, we know where Belichick. We know the division Belichick's going.
We do. We got to narrow down to the division. So that's saying something. Well, Colby, again, man, thank you really from the bottom of my heart for coming on here and taking the time out. I know how busy you are. I can attest to that, and I know I'm a big deal is to come in and pull in on this. So, folks, do please show that love again to Colby. Maybe hit the like button here on this video if you get a chance on that side of it. And best of luck to you guys, as you said. No injuries this next week. Let's just have a great, hard-fought, intense kind of game, and we'll just see where the cards fall where they may after that. Sound good to you?
100%, brother. I appreciate you for having me on. And thank you guys, of course, for also having me on and welcoming me.
Our pleasure. We'll have you on, I'm sure, again here at some point in the future. Would love to have you on. And folks, please, we'll be back here soon. Please hit that like button. Please sub up here to Colby, Patriots Global, Patriots.global. And we'll be back soon. But until that time, please don't forget, go Hawks.